Christ. Hey, everybody, this is Jared Ice and Michael Pegger here from Sex, Drugs, and Opera. This is your podcast for November 30th, 2019. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, motherfuckers.
Yeah, I just reposted the Wishbone.
What? That one's good.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. I love it. That's back when I had glasses.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. I've known Mike for 7 years. He had glasses the whole time. And now when I see you with glasses, I'm like, who the fuck is that guy?
What you mean without?
No, with.
But when do I wear glasses? Oh, with
never. But when I see like a video of you, like if I look at the SDAO Live stuff, I'm like, when the fuck did he ever look like that? But for 98% of the time we've known each other.
Man, it's amazing how glasses can make you look like a fucking nerd, though. Because I look like a nerd anyway. But with glasses, I'm just like, whoa. What scientific principle are you working on, Michael?
But didn't you just take some stage glasses and put lenses in them? Weren't those your glasses for a long time?
No. So I for a long time couldn't wear contact lenses, and it was just cheaper for the theater because I can't say, well, I can't go on the stage blind.
You couldn't wear contact lenses because it hurt.
Well, I had this thing that sounds like a sexually transmitted disease. It's giant papillary conjunctivitis.
Okay.
And what happens is calcium crystals build up on your eyelids.
Okay.
And then they can fucking scratch your eyeballs and shit. And that's what started to happen to me, so I couldn't really wear contact lenses anymtle
Yeah.
And so then they would just buy me these glasses and forget about them, and then
just take them.
I built a whole arsenal of glasses.
That's my shoe collection
from the theater.
I'm just gonna walk out of here.
Rehearsal shoes.
Rehearsal shoes. Yeah. Rehearsal socks.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, people, Thanksgiving around the corner.
Which will it be 2 days ago by the time you hear this?
That's true.
You got big plans there, Peggy's?
No. I was gonna, but my wife fucked it up with the success in her job.
Ah, okay.
She's successful right now, and because of that, her
she's out of town.
Yeah, she's out of town. She's got to go do shit.
Okay.
Up in Denmark, and the Danish don't give a fuck about Thanksgiving, so she's gone.
I mean, why would they?
Why would they?
No, it's not a thing out here. It doesn't exist. People have no idea, but
I'm thankful, dude. I've got all kinds of shit to be thankful about.
That's
it's
good.
Really good, and thankful for SDA. Dude, I'm thankful for you.
I'm thankful for you.
I'm thankful for
I'm
you.
thankful for you.
Oh,
man, I'm thankful for cocaine. I'm thankful.
Bro, shut the lights off.
What do you see?
That's my life without you, bro.
Do it, bro. Have you ever done that, though? I guess we did that at your Thanksgiving, right?
What?
Everyone goes around and actually says something they're thankful for.
Yeah, that's something I do in my family.
Yeah.
And my mom cries. My mom is already welling up with tears, and then when it gets to her, she just lets it loose.
I've never done that. Only at your Thanksgiving.
Well, it's important.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of it, I guess.
And you know how you express it? You express it with language.
I fucking knew it was coming, man.
Language.
I see it fucking coming. You can't fool me anymore. Today's podcast is about music, and language is music a language. Mike and I are going to have a little powwow here.
Because, look, I've heard it 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen memes of whatever people post and shit saying, music is the universal language. Yeah. And then I saw people actually
get your
posting.
popcorn off the mic a bit.
Why? It's on your mic.
You're popping a bit. No, I have space here.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, then I saw people actually saying, no, language is or music is a language. And I'm like, all right, well, that seems like something that
we should talk about.
That could be explored.
Yeah, Mike brought this idea up, and actually, oddly enough, the day that you brought it up, I saw this article about they just did a test, and we'll talk about it later. Not a test, but they did something where they had 30,000 people listen to songs, and it's is this a lullaby or a love song? And people could tell, right? And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it too.
All right, cool.
But normally we do our segments at the end of the podcast, but today we're going to switch things up, and we're going to do SDAO Uni at the beginning.
That's right.
Because in order to have a conversation about if music is a language, I think we need to first talk about what the fuck languages is, right? Are.
Dude, we can be grammar Nazis today.
All right, so
we're talking about language.
So SDAO, we're gonna do an SDAO Uni here about the origins of language. So here, let me get the jingle going. We haven't heard the jingle in a while.
Not for a long time. Yes.
SDAO University. Come in and learn some shit. Do you remember we did like 30 takes of that?
We had a bunch of different takes on it. I mean, not just takes. I mean, like different interpretations.
Your Gandalf one was good. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
You shall not STAO.
We just got drunk and like we did that for like an hour.
That's the only way to do shit like that.
All right. So when you talk about the origins of language, I feel like most people would be like, well, when was the first language? But that's kind of a dumbass fucking thing to say. Because
you leave the room.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of this conversation.
Because you're talking because like written language. Okay,
wouldn't it be funny if some guy invented fucking language?
Yeah.
He invented it and then tried to explain it to everybody, but they're like, huh?
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. That's a valid point. Like, let's get into it. So, first, let's get the written thing out of the way. So, written language, of course, dates back to Egypt. You know, the Indus Valley of Egypt and Mesopotamia, and this is like 8,000 BC,
with
right?
cuneiforms and stuff like that.
Well, you had basically like farmers and people in agriculture. They needed a way to keep track of their like inventory, and so they had these like clay tokens, and they'd make like a symbol for bread. And the symbol for bread was actually like the M of the Monster Energy drink.
Is that why you
thing.
have that Monster Energy drink?
No, this is because
right
I'm tired
now.
as fuck. But that's actually like the bread was like that. So you had these tokens, and you'd be like, okay, 5. And that got complicated. So then they made like these clay tablets, and you would like impress the token on it, and then it started to develop into numbers and this
All right.
stuff.
Can I disagree with you right off the bat, though?
Sure, man.
Because you're talking about the origins of language.
Yeah.
And
no, this isn't the origin of language.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just getting written. I'm getting written language out of the way because
good.
My point is the question people ask when you talk about the origins of language is like, well, when was the first language? I'm saying you can talk about when we first found written language.
Right.
Because you have evidence of that. But now if you go beyond that, because of course anyone who's lived in a foreign country knows that you can speak a language way before you can write it. Written language is a different fucking thing. I mean, there's lots of people that are illiterate in the world that can speak, but they can't read or write. Most of human history, it was a fucking privilege to be able to read or write. Yep. You know what I mean? So when you go back beyond that, though, there's no way to prove it. Because if you got bones and skeletons and shit, like you can't look at someone's brain and see if they had like the capabilities to be able to speak a language. So then it's all fucking hearsay at that point. And actually, in my readings, I was reading about like the Paris Linguistic Council or something like that. They basically said, I can't remember when it was, in like 1866. They were like, no more debates ever on this again. Because it's just you get nowhere. Because you can't get anywhere with like the origins of language.
No, you can't. But
there's just theories.
There's some interesting things to be said about that. And actually, I was really afraid that because the way Jared and I do this, in order, if you guys have ever wondered how we make a podcast, in order to have genuine conversation, we don't talk about what we find out about these subjects. We do our research completely independently from one another, and then we just go. And my research was very, very much from the psychological side of language, because psychology and language are basically not distinguishable. They're language is basically a window into psychology, and the one thing
culture
the one thing they would talk about is how language, like we don't think in language. It's pretty clear that we don't think in language. Because, well, for a couple different reasons, but the more interesting thing is that language seems to be innate in humans somehow.
Well, let me talk about the evolutionary stuff before we get to your stuff.
Go for it.
So before we get to the psychology, we talk about where this came from. There's basically 2 schools of thought on where language came from, and the first is the continuity theory, right? And this is basically, you know, as primates started to have human behavior, whatever you want to define that is, then gestures and sounds slowly became language over time. Culturally, slowly became a language, right? That's the continuity theory. And then the discontinuity theory is what you're talking about, where there was a genetic mutation and one person suddenly had the mental capability to understand language. You know what I mean? And then that basically started languages off, because babies know to decipher a language from birth. Nobody tells them you need to understand that we're speaking, but they just start speaking someday. You know what I mean? They have the mental capability to do it. Monkeys, animals don't do that shit.
And the interesting thing about it is that it's not just repeating what they hear. If a baby speaking for the first time were to be just repeating what they hear, actually their grammar would be much better than it is now, than it is when they first start speaking. But what happens is that what they think happens is that there are algorithms that your brain learns. There are structures that your brain learns before anything, right?
Yeah.
So like a child will go, and if he gets jelly on his hands or something, he'll go and like say I sticky off or something like that, right? You don't say he didn't hear that from his parents. He didn't hear that anywhere, right?
Right.
Plus, there's once they learn certain structures of language. For instance, like a past tense, you add an ed at the end.
Sure.
You know, the one thing that they'll start doing is applying these structures to words that they've never heard before.
Yeah.
Which means that it's a structure inside the brain that is functioning to be applied to language rather than just regurgitation of things that they've heard before.
Yeah, but this is what the human psyche has become. But I don't think that these capabilities existed at the beginning.
No,
right?
But go ahead. There's some other things to talk about. I know you have a couple things you want to get to still, but it's interesting. That's the interesting question. And I think that's why this fucking council said, fuck this. We cannot discuss. We cannot discuss this shit any longer.
Yeah, because the look at language as a psychological thing as it exists today is interesting. There's lots of information to see how people communicate, but how human beings got the ability to communicate is more of something that's just kind of a mystery. You know what I mean? And the interesting thing about these two theories, right? So if I can just sum this up, the discontinuity theory, which again is that there was some mutation of someone who is just like able to understand and grasp language suddenly, is if you think about it, culturally, in primates, for instance, one of the reasons that primates have trouble adapting language is because they're very, how do you say that, Machiavellian? Like they deceive each other and shit. And so when they introduce a new word, the word can't be trusted, and so it's not then
interesting.
It's not then a social norm. Yeah, because it's like you say there's an emergency, but there's not one, so fuck you. Yeah, and so then the language can't spread.
You're trying to get my leaves over there.
So the point is if you had some like ancient human who had the ability to communicate, he would have to already be, or the person would have to be a position of power to influence people, and there would have to be trust, where they would trust that like what you're saying are words.
So trust has something to do with the trusting that somebody is trying to genuinely communicate with you had something to do with the origin of language
because
itself.
In evolution you have what's called ESS, which is like evolutionary stable strategy. So if I evolve, I have a mutation, I'm bigger than you, and I just fucking kill you, this is like, obviously that's going to be selectively bred into society. But there are some groups that decided on a strategy, like we're going to use communication, and so then people only start fucking people who can talk, and then this isn't a mutation as much as a strategy that then gets bred into a society. And then once it's bred into a society, the people who do it better are then selectively bred to do it more, and then we develop the language skills like we have now. So anyway, the problem with the discontinuity theory is you have to have, like, you would have to politically be in power. The other one, I'll finish up with the continuity theory. There's a couple of theories of how it started, but again, nothing provable. So this guy, Max Müller, in 1861, had these theories for how language got started. And the first one was called bow wow, okay? The bow wow theory is that people would imitate, like for dog, you just imitate like ruff ruff, the sound of a dog, and then that became the word dog.
Right.
You know? Poo poo, okay? The poo poo theory is that it was emotional interjections, right? Which this has to do with music later. So like, rah, rah, like there's a mad sound.
But why is it called poo poo?
I don't know, because
that's what you sound like when you take a shit.
Yeah. But if you wanted to have sex with someone, you'd just be like, like you'd make the sound of what you wanted. You know what I mean?
Okay.
The one I found the most interesting was the yee hee ho theory, which is like, in order to coordinate physical movements, like we all need to lift at the same time.
Sure.
Right? They would like, if you put a rope over the top of a tree and you went like he, which like the sound of the rope going up, and then like ho was the sound of the rope going down, then you start to have words like heave, which means like lift.
Right.
You know what I mean? It comes from the sound of the origins.
Huh. Interesting.
Or like tick, tick, tick is a hammer. So
basically, all of these are onomatopoeia theories.
Yeah. So like, but you can't prove any of that shit. So there's problems with both, like of how they could do it. And so basically you come to written language, which is then when we can start to look back at it, but there is no proof of spoken language. And then written language, of course, you can see develop, and Latin, and then we get into the world of language as we know it today, which I think can bring us into your psychological aspects of stuff.
So I don't. Do you know who Noam Chomsky is?
Yeah,
huge, like a huge intellectual in America in the last century, basically, was pretty inarguably the most important figure when thinking about language, in psychological terms.
Yeah,
right?
he was big on the discontinuity theory.
Yeah, absolutely.
That like a person had this mutation.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And he broke language basically by definition into 3 different parts. Right.
Okay.
He broke it into words, rules, and interfaces. Now, rules is the interesting one because it has 3 different subtopics. There's syntax, which is what allows you to assemble words into phrases and sentences.
Yeah, sure.
Morphology, which lets you take like prefixes and suffixes and make complicated words within themselves. And phonology is basically making the combining of vowel sounds and consonant sounds into words. Yeah? Now, and then, so I said, that's right, words, rules, and interfaces. Interfaces is, everybody knows what rules is. Everybody knows what words are. The 3 different rules with syntax, morphology, and phonology. And interfaces is basically the idea of the communication of 2 parties of certain sort of metaphysical ideas or thoughts. Yeah? Words are the interesting thing because this is where it gets into what you were talking about with these onomatopoeias, the bow wow theory, for instance. Words have the arbitrariness of sign is what it's called, right? Where face, let's just take the example of face.
The word face?
The word face.
Okay.
It doesn't look like face when you write it. It doesn't sound like face, like an actual face.
Right.
It doesn't in any way have to do with that. But society has then agreed altogether that this is now the concept for face when you put these consonants together, right? Which makes language in itself not necessarily universal because different cultures come up with different things, different arbitrary signs for face, right? A little side note on this, by the way, when people are learning words, the average high schooler has a vocabulary of something like 60,000 words in English, right? 60,000 words.
It's pretty high.
That is learning 1 word every 2 hours since you're 1 year old, and that's the average high schooler in America. Learning English.
That's crazy. I mean, they probably couldn't recall all those words, but they would recognize those words.
Right.
I'd be interested to know how many words people are using. You know what I mean? Because they say to be fluent, you need about 1,000 words to be fluent in language, to be able to function in a foreign country. And I think that's pretty true.
Let's talk about this then, because this is really that I'll bet you that's really, really close, right?
Yeah.
There's something when it comes to language specifically called the Zipf mystery, or the Zipf principle, right?
Yeah.
Where if you take if you rank all the words in the English language, which has been done by if you look in the like the Webster's, or if you look in analogs and libraries that have what the fuck am I looking?
Consolidated?
Consolidated works and then counted the words in them, right?
Okay.
You can rank the different amount of words. Is by far it's easily the most used language.
Yeah.
And then number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right?
Yeah.
There's an interesting correlation that happens.
Okay.
All
right.
And that is number 1 is used this many times. Number 2 is used half
as much as number 1.
As much as number 1.
Okay.
And this correlation continues for thousands of places.
Like half as much.
No, not half as much. Number 3 is used a third as much as number 1. Number 4 is used a fourth, and then a fifth,
crazy.
and a sixth, and a sixth. Basically, each word is used in proportion to its rank. And the place where I got this from is they used the word sauce, right?
Sauce.
And they said sauce in if you look in general text, they rank it as like number 5,500 or something.
Yeah, okay.
And they said number one, the word "the" in this same database is used about 181 million times, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. So if you do the calculation, you would find that the word sauce should, in this database, be used 30,000 times.
Yeah.
And when you look it up, it's used 29,658 times.
Jesus Christ.
And it happens all over the place.
This is like the fucking Fibonacci fucking spiral.
Well, okay, so then we get to the oh my god, I just had it in my head and you just fucking knocked it out of my head.
Sorry, man.
Oh my god. The Pareto principle.
Yeah, okay.
The Pareto principle is a principle that states basically 20% of producers can be oftentimes account for 80% of results, right?
Yeah.
Now, this Pareto principle ends up being like applicable all over the goddamn known world. It's crazy. He started with 20% of Italy, or 80% of Italy's land is owned by 20% of its people, right?
Yeah, sure.
This goes on all today. 80% of the wealth of the world is owned by the top 20% of people.
Okay.
In companies, if a company has its main customer base, 80% of their business normally is accounted for by 20% of their people, and the same thing happens in language. 20% of the top words account for 80% of usage.
Okay.
In language, which is why when you say to be fluent in something, you need about 1,000 words.
Yeah.
I would be willing to bet that fucking house that is straight up with the Pareto principle, that you need 1,000 words, which would be about 20%, and you're then about able to use 80% of the.
That's
language.
true, because I mean, in our day-to-day lives, it's like, we.
God, it was hard to get through that one. Dude.
Yeah. No, it was good. It was good.
I was fucking trying.
No, but in our daily lives, we fly, we drive, we eat, we drink, but like you don't dig. Like I don't use the word dig very often. So like this verb is not as important, You're happy, you're sad, but like, there's other words that we don't use as much, so you don't need those. So let's kind of start transitioning now to talking about like music a little bit, if that's cool with you, right?
Yeah, there's just one more thing I want to say, which is amazing.
Yeah.
This is really, really amazing. The fact that we're not people tend to think of language, especially because when they're learning a new language, as a matter of memorization, right?
Right, sure.
Again, language does not work that way, and the way the way linguists talk about it is something called productivity.
Okay.
And it's that the mind has memorized not words but algorithms in order to make unique sentences. Oftentimes, if you say a sentence that you just came up with in your head, you are creating it out of thin air. The probability of the amount of sentences that can be said is so much greater than the sentences that have been said, which means that there's a very high probability that when you speak, you're speaking that sentence for the first fucking time.
Sure.
Ever.
Yeah.
And that's an insane thing. And the fact that our brain is able to come up with on the fly, basically without thinking in language at all, because again, you don't think in language, you just speak, and come up with something that is completely unique. Is another facet of language that is inherent in language.
But here's the thing: you say you don't think in language, but I remember learning back in psychology university that like if a baby like doesn't learn a language, then you will basically have like mental retardation like occur. So like if your baby's deaf, they need to learn sign language fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
before they're like 6 years old. Otherwise, intelligence can't really develop independent of language.
But babies and children can think before they have the capability of language.
That's true.
They can think.
So intelligence and thinking. I see. So like a self-awareness, like thinking, is different than like like a higher intelligence.
It just seems that language happens to be a very good translator for thought.
I see.
Thought is something different.
Well, it's odd because we need you need a name for something. Otherwise, you can't remember it. You know, like you look at like colors throughout time, and it's like the color blue wasn't talked about till like kind of late in history, even though blue things obviously existed.
Orange too.
Yeah. And so this actually transitions well into kind of what I want to talk about music is that like colors are kind of arbitrary. You know what I mean? Like when you look at the rainbow, you're like, it's what, 7 colors? Some countries say 8, say some 6. You look at a fucking rainbow, it's a spectrum of colors. You know what I mean? Oh, you got like an acronym.
Roy G. Biv, of course.
Okay.
Everybody knows that. There are 7. And
I
by the
grew
way,
the fuck up, Peter Pan.
Do you know why that one?
What?
Do you know why that one exists?
Roy G. Biv?
Biv?
Yeah.
So it's basically, that was basically codified by Newton.
Yeah.
Whenever he was able to separate white light into the spectrum.
Yeah.
Newton, for as brilliant as he fucking was a bit of a fucking nutbag.
Yeah, sure.
Like outside of inventing calculus on a fucking dare.
Yeah, right.
He also like tried to use like secret messages in the Bible to determine this and that.
Damn.
And the reason why he came up with indigo, which isn't really in there. It's
color.
not really in there. It's not in the. I mean, every color's in the spectrum.
Right.
You don't really see it in there. Is because he thought there should be 7, not 6.
But that's what I mean.
Straight up by that.
But I was, okay. Let me see if I can make this path correctly. So, like, colors are just arbitrary. Because, like, for instance, because we talk about, we're going to transition now to talking about, like, languages and dialects and music. A language is, like, English is a language. A dialect is American English or British English, right? Which is kind of arbitrary because languages are a spectrum like colors are. You know, we say blue is a color, but then turquoise is more of a dialect of blue and green. You know what I mean? But there's no reason why it can't be its own fucking color. And oddly enough, I was teaching a voice lesson here today, and we were talking about vowel modification on top, and I used the same thing. I said vowels are a spectrum. You know, we say but like blends into another vowel.
Absolutely.
It's not a definitive line. And so you use wherever you want the blend to be to make the sound you want. But vowels, colors, languages, a lot of stuff is a spectrum. But to understand it, we arbitrarily choose like there are 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there are 5 vowels or whatever.
Well, it's clearly arbitrary in the fact that other languages have different vowels, combinations of vowels.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that U is E and U together shows that there's a spectrum between the two. An interesting thing, you were really getting into what's it called? God damn it, evolution. You were talking about evolution.
Yeah, sure. Noise.
I came across something, which, by the way, again, half the shit I wanted to say you can't say because it's amazing how much shit you have to throw away when you're doing research for one of these ththings.
Yeah, I got to throw away half too. Yeah.
And actually, I'm throwing away 80%. I'm keeping 20%. Pareto principle.
Noise.
Pareto fucking principle.
Yeah, that's good.
No. They were talking about how a lot of evolutionary biologists think that a human's tendency to choke on food has something to do with a trade-off for the production of language.
Okay.
The fact that we're able to manipulate our pharynx to make so many different vowels requires room for the tongue to move amply, right?
Yeah, sure.
Or ample room for the tongue to move, better said, if we're talking about fucking language. A trade-off for such a large pharynx.
Yeah, okay, I see.
Is that
you'd be choking?
Is that you might be you'd be choking?
You'd be choking.
You'd be choking.
You'd be choking, baby. All right. So,
anyway, I just thought you might think that's interesting.
I find it interesting as fuck, dude. I'm half-mast over here. Now listen,
let's get to what music is. Is it? That's what we wanted to answer anyway, dude.
But see, I think it's a semantical question because I would say music is definitively not a language. Not a language.
Well, wait a minute. Before you just go balls deep into your fucking answer, I think we should take into account what a fucking language is, right?
Hi, man.
So you could, if you wanted to.
Yeah.
You absolutely have the tools in music.
Yeah, sure.
To make words.
Yeah.
I mean, not same words on top of music.
Yeah.
You have enough separate elements that if you wrote a phrase, it would mean a specific thing.
Sure. You could do that with any of the senses.
Yeah,
Mike, okay, can I
but what I'm saying is that this is oral.
Yeah.
And people are saying that music is a language. I'm saying you could do that if you were to call it a language.
Sure.
But you don't.
But what I'm saying,
we haven't.
But I'm saying you could do it with literally anything. Like, can I create a language for you in 30 seconds, right? If I slap you on the left side of your face, it's a question. On the other side, it's a negative, right? If I flick you with my one finger in the eye, it's the pronoun me, and two is you. Like, slap on the head's give, slap on the knees is bread. So, like, slap, slap, flick, slap. That's like, give me bread.
Of course, you got the guys on the fucking, the guys with the flags directing planes. That's a language.
But like, with smells, you could do
language. Yeah.
With smells, you can do it. So, what a language is...
hey,
yeah, but
dude,
hey! Okay, but society...
People are saying that music is a language, and saying... I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt and work through it, dude.
Yeah, but I'm saying farts could be a language.
Yes.
Society decides what a language is, and society
I'm
has
trying to fill up an hour and 15 minutes of a podcast, and you're just wanting to fucking blow your load right away.
No,
we can go through everything and say, nope, that's bullshit. Nope, that's bullshit.
Fine. We can do it. We can do it. But there are interesting aspects of music that are very linguistic in their nature. You know what I mean? But society decides what a language is. And that's what I was trying to say with the colors is it's basically arbitrary, right? Like, English is a language, and then a dialect of English is American English, and it's like, when is German not German anymore? Like Swedish, or not Swedish, Switzerland. The way they speak German is not fucking German, but it's still considered a dialect of German until at some point, some book and some dictionary decides it's a different language. People decide languages, and it's based on society and how many people deem it to be a language.
Yep.
But one of the aspects of language that they said, like language being the same, is that you can communicate to somebody else without having to teach them anything. Right?
Well, you'd have to teach somebody an entire language. Someone could argue that if you understand music, if you were a fluent musician, that I could communicate with you, to you with that. Which, yeah, maybe some things you can communicate with music. There are some things that you don't need to teach anything for. Dissonance. Yeah. Dissonance. That you don't need. I think to a Western. Yeah, you're right. Maybe to a Westerner more so, but if I had a suspension and then relieved it, they will feel relief, period.
Yes, if they have a Western ear.
No, I don't think it's just if they have a Western ear. Your ear is hearing dissonance and then consonance. That's what I mean. And that communicates something no matter where you're from. You hear dissonance and consonance still.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about the physics of the sound.
Yeah, but I mean, but within.
I'm not talking about what those things mean.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
the physics of sound that's unbalanced, and everybody can sense that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, but your feeling of discomfort would come from your spectrum of what is possible. And if you have like people from like these 5-tone cultures and shit where like they're used to crunch all the time, then they might not be able to hear the difference so well between a minor and a major chord. But like so then you're talking about music being a universal language.
They could absolutely hear a difference between a tritone and a fifth. And they would hear, and
I think in today's world, but I think 100 years ago, if you found some pygmy tribe in Africa and you showed them a tritone and a fifth, I think they might not be able to tell that there's a difference.
I don't know, dude. You hear beats. Your ear is actually hearing.
Okay, so there is, but
consonance and dissonance physically.
It's a spectrum. Okay, so this article I read.
I'm just trying to make the case for the fact that there are some intangible things that could be used as communication in music.
Well, then let's get into it. So this article I read that was like going around the internet like 3 or 4 days ago said like they had a bunch of fucking songs. I can't ever remember how many from every culture, right? And there was like 10-second clips, and they had like 30, 40,000 people listen, and everybody could be like, oh, this is a lullaby, and this is a love song, and this is a celebratory song. And they were like, music must be a universal language because everybody could pick the lullabies every time. But to me, it's like, universal is ridiculous because we're all human beings. And yes, our subcultures are different, but when you look at like human beings as a whole, we all experience life in the same way. We all have a heartbeat. You know what I mean? We all cry. We all like want to fuck. Like we all have similarities. And so we're not that different. In the terms of like evolutionary possibilities, other animals on the planet, we're so fucking similar that if I went anywhere in the world and I was like, all right, I'm going to make up a language. You tell me if this is a sad conversation, if I'm talking to a baby, or I'm fighting. It's like you would be like, I think that's the fighting one.
I think you might be misrepresenting the study a little bit. Is that what they did?
No, that's
Is
not
that what they did?
That's not what they did. But they had these. But what I'm saying is that like you can hear sad sounds in music because they mirror natural human things. That's why we're able to understand them. When a mother talks to a baby, a mother's always like,
right. Well, no.
So a lullaby always has to have that sound.
Yeah. Okay.
No one's like, go to sleep, baby. Like,
I do it.
You can't like.
God damn it. No,
but you know what I
look,
mean? Like it has to have it natural. It has to relate to something in your life.
Yeah, of
and
course.
the human
But
experience is basically the same for
yes,
everybody.
exactly. But that lends itself to being more a language. I am not saying music is a language, not by a long shot.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is if humans have all shared experiences and you can somehow resemble that in a way in music, then there is at least the beginnings, the inklings of language there.
So if a sunset makes you cry, is a sunset a language?
No, I didn't say that. What I said was if we all share the experience of being rocked to sleep by our parents, right? Okay. And I can communicate that with you somehow artificially through music.
Okay.
Not only is that art because you're using artificial means to convey that, but that seems to be something, if the experience is universal and that is universally accepted as sounding like that universal experience, then okay, then we can talk about language being the music being a universal language. But the word language is the problem with this whole proposition.
Yeah.
It's nowhere even close to meeting the criteria.
No.
It does not have fucking arbitrariness of sign.
Yeah.
It does not have real syntax. It does not have rules. Look, rules used to be. I'll make this argument.
Yeah, okay.
Back with sonata form and shit like that, you were getting closer to language.
Yeah, but
you had harmonic structure. You had harmonic syntax.
I mean, okay, first off, there's an organization, I think it's called SIL, and their whole job is to like say every language in the world. And they have not said music is a language.
Of course
they
not.
have this
I'm
whole
not
list.
saying
I know.
music
Just
is
let
a
me
language.
say my thought without fucking getting into it. So music, of course, by society does not think music is a language, right? Of course. What did you just say? You yelled. You threw me off. What did you say before I said that?
I said, before earlier with sonata form and everything, there might have been structure.
Yeah, okay. So if you're saying like music can communicate instructions, you look at music notes and it creates instructions for you to do something. Yeah.
I didn't say that. I said structure, not instructions.
Yeah, but I'm talking about instructions now.
Okay.
You use the structure. You're using structure like grammar, right? Syntax. You're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I'm just saying that's similar.
Yeah. But now what I'm saying is, if you look at music notes, they communicate instructions, right? You can read it like, oh, I'm supposed to do this, like a recipe. In the same way that mathematics is, like, if you show Pythagorean theorem to like someone from another country, a Russian person, they would look at it and they'd be like, yes, I recognize that. But you can't be like, can you please get me chocolate milk instead of soy milk? You know what I mean? Like. Music does have the tools to be a language.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we stop saying it's a language. It's not a fucking language. But,
of course not, dude. I was trying to give these people online who keep saying music is the universal language. I was trying to do my due diligence and go through and then shit on all of their poets.
But okay, so if you play a sad song and it communicates to somebody that this is a sad moment, right? So if that's not language, then what is that? What is that form of communication?
Communication is not it. That's not the definition of language. Communication.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. I don't want to talk about language anymore because music's not a language.
Right. So
then what is music? If you can communicate this is sad, and then you make somebody feel sad.
It seems to me that it's we don't have to really go back and recategorize everything. Music was categorized as an art form, and art forms in general seem to be the things that are communicative for humans that are not languages. Yeah. That seems to be, for me, the entire realm of art. Yeah. Is that I'm taking things like, let's say, my vowels, language takes vowels, consonants, and rules, and the communication, and altogether it makes a language. Yeah. When you take and the artificial things that you're using in that sense are your words, are the sounds you can produce from your vocal tract. In music, you can do that with your vocal tract, or you can do that with anything else using pitch, tone, duration. Right? Yeah. Or pitch, rhythm, and duration within that rhythm and everything. So now that's one form of communication that is not language, but painting is the same thing. It's basically taking artificial means and making them to communicate.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Dance, the same thing.
Yeah, but the thing is when you talk about being universal, like I remember learning about these. There were these like these tribes in Africa or something that these ethnomusicologists tried to explain to them that music and dancing are separate, and they were just like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah, no, I get that.
You know what I mean? But that's so when you say it's universal.
Listen, I'm gonna point something out to you. Do you mean to say you when you say it's
no,
universal?
man denkt us,
right.
Mike. Yeah,
I wonder if you've gotten into...
Yeah, but keep the conversation going. Don't take it personally. Like, I'm not arguing with you. I'm bringing up points, man.
I know. I'm just trying to think, wait a minute, did I say that shit?
No, like just, okay, like one seems to think that when one goes to Africa, like...
I'm just trying to figure out who you're talking to.
But I remember, I also learned about there were these workers that would whistle and the different pitches would help them stamp these envelopes at the same time.
Hey, but
right?
no, wait a minute. There are people who live today that communicate language through whistles. They have figured out how to use, and they can say full sentences by whistling.
Yeah.
Now that is language. Now that what they are doing is actual language.
Yeah, it's communicating.
Yeah. No, I'm saying they can connotate structure and form, and they do it because I think it's in South America. They have to herd these flocks, but they're on different hilltops, and they're able to say, "Hey, it's dinner time. Should I get something? Should I bring something down from the mountain?" The other guy will be like, "No, we got enough shit down there."
Yeah, it's not like that though.
It is.
No, it's not. They say dinner time, food, like something else. Like it's extremely limited, so limited that no one would codify it as a language.
Listen, I'm not sure if that's actually the case.
It is. I researched talking drums for 2 fucking hours, which is the most advanced, I think, form of using instruments to talk.
I'm just saying they're able to say sentences, not words, sentences, which means that there must be structure. Why can't you believe me on this one, dude?
Because having
Let's go outside and fight.
Because having the building.
Go outside and fight.
This might be the most we've ever fought on a podcast.
I love it.
Because having the building blocks to be able to build something doesn't make it something, or being close. Animals also can communicate in a lot of ways. Dolphins, bonobo, chimps, they have pretty big vocabularies. Dogs and stuff like that, like they understand a lot of words, but the ability to communicate basic fundamental things is so far from being a language.
So first off, when you talk about dolphins, scientists are basically in agreement that dolphins have language, complicated language, complex, complicated language that we can't understand. For instance, talking about the Ziff mystery applies to dolphin. It does not apply to when you randomly make squeaks with something. It does not apply to bird songs often, but it does apply to dolphins. It's the strongest indicator that it is a language more than anything, right?
Right?
So when you bring up dolphins squeaking doesn't make it a language, well, actually, they might have language, right? What I'm saying is with this other thing is they're able to use musical tones and pitch and relation to communicate not just words, ideas through structure. So it's possible to do it, absolutely. If I don't know if somebody is out there saying, that's not a language because they whistle.
Look, I would say this. Music could be a language. It could be developed. I would say that 100% with no fucking problems. Right?
But it's not.
Gladly. But a universal language, it's not.
Right. It's not only not a universal
facial
language,
expressions,
it's not a language.
Yeah, but facial expressions are pretty universal.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's kind of a primal thing. You furrow your brow, it's like, that guy's angry. I could go to fucking Indonesia, and if someone came at me like that, I'd be like, this dude's pissed off.
Dude, it actually makes me wonder why... It makes me wonder why nobody has taken their own language and made a complete musical representation of it. You could come up with a musical gesture for sounds phonetically.
Oh,
and you could speak English with it.
Yeah, sure.
Now, whether it would fit into the harmonic syntax that we're used to hearing, that we sort of demand to hear, is different, because if you have like da da is a or it's the letter A or the sound ah and to have L it's like wee then they won't necessarily go together. It might not be pleasant, but you could absolutely, I think, 100% make a one-to-one transliteration from English to music, and I've never heard it before.
Yeah, but I think in the next 5 years, like AI and computer algorithms will be so good that someone will make an app that just does it, and nobody will give a shit.
Yeah, but why has it not happened before? It seems like a clear thought. It seems like it could happen.
Well, because up till now, it would be. I mean, music is so vastly languages. I think most English speakers have no idea how advanced, like how fucking complicated English grammar structures are by themselves.
Right, but it's already figured out. All you have to do is take the phonetics of English and the grammar and just copy it into music.
Yeah. I mean, but what I'm saying is a person would have to have so much fucking knowledge and time to do it for no fucking point. But a computer algorithm the next 2 or 3 years will probably be able to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like, rack, there it is. Because, like language has all the tools you need. Because we talked about it in one of the other podcasts, like the amount of variation in 8 notes. I don't know if that was a sponsor thing or this podcast, but we said the amount of variation is like trillions and trillions and trillions, like different fucking things.
It's factorial. It's 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that is just the number of different orders that those 8 notes could be in, and then you have length. Yeah. Then you have rhythm, and I mean, there's all different kinds of things you could bring into
You could easily make a musical representation of language, but at the end of the day, if no one knows it, it's useless.
Exactly. You'd have to teach everybody what that is,
But with that being said, as a composer, if we talk about some of the cultural aspects of it, like I think it is interesting how even if you and I speak English, I think it's impossible to use this principle you talked about. I think you can only communicate 80% and 20% gets lost.
No, you mean you can communicate 20% and 80% gets lost.
No, I think the other way around.
Oh, okay.
I think because it must work negatively too, right?
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely.
Because like if I grew up like so let's get deep, Mike.
Get deep, balls deep.
Here it comes.
Can I drink that one too?
Yeah. Go ahead. So my family, just no one really said I love you very much growing up, right? We loved each other, but we never said it. Your family maybe said it more than I did, right?
We fucking said it all the time.
Right. And so like I think you might throw it out more than I would. So that means if Mike, if I said I love you,
this beer.
But that means, Mike, it would have a meaning when I say it to you that you wouldn't hear. Do you know what I mean? There's an element of the communication that you couldn't hear the weight of it.
No, I absolutely could if you and I. Yeah. If it was rare, it's a matter of supply and demand. If it was rare when you spoke to me, and then all of a sudden you said it just by the fact of its rarity, in your lexicon, it's more worthwhile.
But like you said on the street, so let's take swearing as an example. You and I say fuck all the goddamn time,
do we?
Right? Yes. And so if we go on the street and we say fuck, if someone came up to me and said fuck, I wouldn't even hear it. Yeah. But if you like went into a church or something like that, you know what I mean? And someone said like,
we fucking love Jesus.
If someone said to me like, oh, it's fucking hot in here, I'd be like, yeah, it is. And I wouldn't hear the weight of what they said. Like, do you understand what I'm trying to communicate?
I get it. I absolutely get it.
And so when you apply that to music, because I used to struggle a lot when I was first writing music of like, man, should this be like da-da-bop or should it be da-da-bop? Like, I'd be like, which one's better? You're actually so much is going to get lost in your musical gesture that a group would like the other one, a group would like the other one. So there's a certain element of it that doesn't fucking matter.
Right, which makes it not universal. In that case, English isn't even universal among English speakers.
Yeah.
I mean, for real, it's not because
that's what I mean.
If I say a word more often than somebody else does, I think you're right about that. By the way, if I heard I love you more often, I'll say on the phone, I love you, bye bye.
Yeah,
right?
I would never do that shit.
Right, you would never do that, which means that if you were to do that, it would have to be a situation, fucking situation, right? And that means that the word fuck for us means something completely different, which means the word fuck cannot be universal.
No.
So it's to use the word universal then is bullshit outside of the realm of physics.
Yeah.
Gravity's universal, period.
Yeah. But it's interesting to think about that in music because it's like, you see something that makes you cry and it would make someone else laugh. You know what I mean? Like you would like you see the end of Bohème and this fucking the shit goes on.
When's the last time you cried at a piece of music?
Me? Yeah. Oh no, never.
Never?
Ah, man, I've lived a hard life, dude.
I cried yesterday at a piece of music.
Yeah, I think I was like 14 years old, man, and then life beat the fuck out of me. And I became jaded.
Jesus Christ.
But it's like Barber's Adagio for Strings, for instance. Everybody kind of interprets that as a sad song, but I think he said that it's supposed to be ecstasy. Like orgasmic ecstasy.
It does feel like ecstasy to me.
Yeah, but some people think that's a sad fucking song. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you can't ensure that what you're saying is how it affects people.
Yeah, of course, especially since in the popular culture, that piece has universally been used for sad shit.
Yeah.
If someone dies in a movie and it's got to be slow motion, Barber. Fucking Adagio, baby.
A beautiful piece of music, though.
It is. It's
but
amazing.
with that, I think that there are like dialects within music. You know what I mean? Like classical music. Music in general has become so homogenized in the world that it's kind of the same. But I think you can hear influences of like people that grew up in America in their songwriting versus Germany. I think if you really listen deep, you can hear rock, even if they're writing classical music. You know what I mean? You can't get rid of your accent of the musical upbringing you had. And in that way, there's a lot of linguistical properties to music.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
There are universal aspects to music.
Yeah.
Not in their interpretation, but in like the physics of music.
Yeah.
Everybody, like, I might be wrong. If there's a musicologist out there that can show me differently, I would love to hear it. But basically, every single music form in any culture that has ever existed works on a tonic. There is a tonic.
Yeah, you have to have some sort of relation because
right. I know that's what I mean. Though.
Yeah, music has to be organized. Otherwise, it's like it becomes just noise really quickly.
But isn't that interesting though?
Yeah.
The fact that cultures, no matter what it is, have a tonic. That there is a tonic that almost always the closest relations to it are fifth and fourth. I mean, it's not amazing because we know about physics.
Yeah.
But in that sense, those things are definitely universal. They don't communicate anything, but there is something maybe that communicates about home. Not like your home, but the fact that you arrive.
I see what you mean.
Back to a certain spot.
Yeah,
that's interesting to me.
Resolve and stuff.
Yeah, resolve, which is kind of the point I was trying to make about a dissonance that resolves.
Yeah, sure.
But maybe I was doing it the wrong way. Yeah. Maybe instead of a dissonance that resolves, I should have a fifth that resolves.
Yeah.
That might be a better indication of what is universally heard.
Yeah, physics definitely plays in the sounds of the creation of this stuff. Also language too. You know what I mean? I think people have awe in language and people do pure vowels often in languages because they're physically easier to make. They carry more.
I wonder if the Ziff mystery applies to the usage of vowels in language.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had to guess, is the most used vowel. If I had to guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's the least amount of effort. Your tongue's down. You know, your lips aren't rounded.
Right, but wouldn't it make sense that evolutionarily then the language would tend to use more than the other vowels? Wouldn't it make sense?
Yeah, I wonder. You know, some languages are much more there's a lot of ahs in Italian. German's a very ooey, closed language.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Just like its people.
Yeah, closed off. I don't know, Mike. I think we got enough for a podcast here.
Yeah, we do. But if you want, I don't know if you had a tippy that you wanted to dippy.
I could dip the tip just a bit.
We can dip a tip a bit.
I hope I can open it.
I liked that one. I liked this one because you and I had some original thoughts. You know, I've often thought about our podcast, Jared, that you and I are too homogenous sometimes in what we're trying to say. Yeah. And you and I were trying to say different things this time.
Right.
I liked it. There was some conflict.
Yeah, man. People need a little conflict. It can't be too cozy all the time. Just like a fifth resolving.
Jesus Christ. You're not as good at that as I am.
Well, I didn't transition. I was just making it. All right, Mike. So I'm going to give you a choice to choose between these, okay, just from the titles. Okay. All right, you ready? Okay. Okay, moving on after the high of a show. All right?
Okay.
Sex. I don't want to do that one. That one's out. Starting late in opera, starting a career late. Okay. Drugs and alcohol. And that's it.
I tend towards that one, I guess.
Drugs and alcohol?
It's funny because getting over the high of the show, my answer would be drugs and alcohol. So why don't we just go straight to drugs and alcohol?
Okay. Ooh, this is more of the dark sides of drugs and alcohol.
I love it.
You want to get down? Okay. They actually wrote something interesting. I'm going to read this.
Please do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me play the jingle first.
Jingle-ling-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding.
Oh, yeah.
Syntactical structure.
Dip love.
Harmonic syntax.
God damn.
You need a vacation, dude.
I'm worn the fuck out, dude.
You need a fucking vacation.
I do. Subject, drugs and alcohol. Hey, Jared and Michael, I really like your podcast. I just heard your podcast episode about drinking. Currently, alcohol is the most common drug in opera houses. I don't want to judge you for not telling enough about the sad side of alcohol. Maybe you haven't experienced this side yet or didn't fit into the theme. So he wrote a long thing here. I hope I'm allowed to read this person who wrote in because you fucking wrote it.
We tell everybody all the time to tell us whether you want it read or not. So we're taking chances now. Go.
All right. So, yeah, if you write us, then it's fair game. So just sit back and enjoy this, Mike. Okay, I have been working on opera houses all over Europe for 10 years. In this relatively short time, I've experienced tragic stories with alcohol. Great singers lost their love and passion for their profession in the daily habit of 3 or 4 Weizenbier in the canteen and destroyed their career. I don't want to list what a miserable life story I know of opera people who couldn't overcome alcohol addiction. Unfortunately, there are far too many of them. I'm convinced that nobody on stage should be drunk. Enough times I discovered drunk singers or even more dangerous technicians during the performance on stage, and they were banished afterwards. Especially when there are scenes that you rely on your colleague's skills for your life. When a colleague is supposed to drop a wall at the right moment, or a technician drives 120 people on a podium. So I prefer to tell a story I experienced as a young Abendspielleiter. We played a rare opera with a difficult dramatic soprano role, and our evening cast canceled at short notice. The search for a replacement was very difficult. A young, talented singer who was just singing in a city 4 hours away and in the middle of final rehearsals accepted and was in the house about 4 hours before the performance. She didn't want a rehearsal, and we just watched the video of the performance. She had a hangover from last night and just wanted to study the music. We only crossed the stage for a very short time and talked about the production. During the performance, I was at her side all the time and tried to explain the next scene to her in a few words. She spent most of the time between the scenes outside the stage entrance and smoked countless cigarettes. Shortly before her big stage appearance to the big aria, she suddenly became very dramatic and didn't want to perform anymore. She said she can only perform if she drinks a cognac just before her aria. Relatively nervous, I ran to the next bar and got a bottle. I mingled with the choir and brought the glass to the stage. She drank and sang the aria perfectly. By the end of the performance, she drank the whole bottle, and after the performance, we celebrated the whole night. Without sleep and totally drunk, she went back and had a dress rehearsal in the evening. She was so talented, but on her way into the abyss. Unfortunately, one also heard...
So you say.
Yeah. Unfortunately, one also heard the smoking and drinking when she sang. Thank God she has overcome her alcohol addiction and her fear of singing without alcohol on stage. She's become one of the greatest and most famous singers today. Alcohol is a dangerous drug and destroys too many careers. So, Tales of the Crypt.
Okay.
From the Crypt. Okay, yeah. On the drinking episode, we were pretty lighthearted about it, I have to say. There, of course, are downsides to drinking.
Of course.
Of course
no one
there
said that, and you should not drink while you're on duty. Absolutely
not.
not.
Don't drink on stage. Don't drink if you're a fucking technician and shit like that.
Definitely not. Look, I mean, you are impairing yourself. Absolutely. There's no question about that. Look, I don't know why libertarian views are so fucked up, but I really believe if you're not in a position to hurt anybody, I don't give a fuck whether you are drinking or not, right? I actually don't care about your lost talent or anything either, because there's enough fucking talent out there. Fuck anybody who wants to just throw it all away. They should have some better perspective on life.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, okay.
But there are all kinds of people. One of my fucking idols, Christopher Hitchens, was a clear. He drank like in the middle of the day and was one of the most productive, brilliant people you can possibly know, right?
Yeah.
That's different than somebody drinking during a performance.
Yeah, sure.
Clearly. So it's not exactly clear cut all the time, but during a performance, yeah, I think you should fucking cut it out. I mean, technicians, it's a completely different thing.
Yeah, I would say okay, first off, yeah, don't ever fucking drink at work. You know what I mean?
it's my personal experience, which is just anecdotal, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't like the way I feel after singing when I drink.
Yeah.
Like if I'm at a party or something, somebody asks me to sing. If I go balls to the walls on it, the next day I definitely feel it and hear it in my chords. So, as to advise people, I would say, don't do that.
Well, I would say because there's two conversations to have. First off, I would say it's an easy thing to say. You don't fucking drink before rehearsal. You don't drink before a show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't fucking drink on the stage.
Yeah.
Because you're wasting everyone else's time. I don't care if you can still do okay.
Right.
You know what I mean? Be well rested, show up, and do what you need to have a good show.
Nobody would accept it if an athlete showed up on the football field and was drunk.
Yeah.
Nobody.
So boom. That's an easy fucking don't ever fucking go down that road. But how do you end up there? I don't want to minimalize how alcohol can spiral out of control. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people who have never sung in a German theater don't realize how easy it is to get caught up in the routine of show, drink, show, drink, show, drink, show, drink. A lot of people do it well. I do it all the time. I go, I have a beer or two, I go home. That's fine. But I've definitely seen people that get lost in it.
Yeah, definitely. That's the issue with anything that can become habit forming.
Yeah, sure.
Not just alcohol. Anything.
Oh no, all of it. Any vice.
Yeah.
And people, when you say vice, people think of drugs and alcohol or sex or food. Those are the most popular ones. But man, cell phones, you know what I mean? Like video games, whatever, like laying in bed, baths, whatever. It could all be a fucking vice. You can do it. You can do it all too much.
Now,
you know what I mean?
Of course, alcohol has negative physical effects on your body. So I would say she's right in saying it's a shame.
Yeah.
In A Bronx Tale, a movie with Robert De Niro, he said the saddest thing in life is wasted talent, which I know I just said earlier, if you want to waste your talent, go for it, which I still believe. I believe that you can, if you want, do it. It is sad, though. If Pavarotti would have just fucking drank himself to death, that's fucking sad.
No, and when I was in the jazz world, it's like you were like kind of expected. No one was fucking performing sober. You know what I mean?
But you make a good point. Look, I have rehearsals until 10 o'clock every night.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it, I take my job seriously. If you're doing your job seriously, you're giving your all.
Yeah,
you're trying to find out where the limits of a character are, and you give your all, and it's exhausting and you're high at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like you're just like, oh my god, I can't make another step, but at the same time you're fucking like, oh my god, oh yes, and then to have a beer at the end of that day, just to sit down, relax, and have a beer is just the most tasty, scrumptious thing ever. She's of course talking about something else. She's talking about a cognac right before a.
That's obviously an extreme case, but I think people don't realize that it's like a black hole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like there's an outer rim where like you can kind of like make some choices and stuff, but there is a point with all these vices where you get pulled in. And then you kind of like you can't come back alone. You know what I mean?
Somehow I've heard a lot of stories about downers and singers. How before auditions they'll take these. What are they called?
Yeah. I can't remember. But in the drug episode we talked about it. Yeah,
but
people do that all the time. Man.
So that's accepted? Why?
Well, no one knows about it.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
Producers will let you do whatever the fuck you want to do to get through tonight's show,
right?
And then they'll throw you away. Yeah, they don't give a fuck what you fucking do, But as an individual, you have to watch yourself. No one's going to take care of you.
Though, I also think, by the way, if you encounter a colleague that right before the show they have a beer, I don't think you should be an asshole and judge that person. Why? Sorry, you're allowed to do everything else with a beer in your body. You're allowed to drive a car. You're allowed to do whatever you want because because again, it's a spectrum. It's not black and white.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I know that's people talk about dangerous things to say. I'm just saying the truth. Is that if you have a sip of beer and you have 5 beers, there's a difference.
Yeah, there is.
Somewhere along the point, there is a line where it's acceptable and not acceptable.
Yeah, but I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it where people could see me. You know what I mean? Because
because of the judgment.
Well, yeah, because if you have no beers, then there's no reason for someone to think you're taking it too far or have a problem. But if you have one beer, maybe you just have one beer and you're fine, and it's a light beer or something like that, But if people see you, it's like, if you have a gun in the room, it's more likely you're going to do something bad than if there's not one. You know
I get
what I
it.
mean?
I totally get it. But I think it's kind of irrefutable to say, a small amount of alcohol will not impair their judgment.
Yeah.
Will not impair their voice.
Yeah.
So.
I don't like black and white. I don't like to say like no drinking, because
right.
like then it's not rules. It's a spectrum like everything else we've talked about today. But in Germany, also beer drinking is much more casual than I think in American theaters.
Definitely.
Probably it's like every theater in Germany has a fucking cantina where you go and you have a beer after the show.
But now,
you know what I mean?
but now Strengverboten. Oftentimes theaters are saying. Until 8:30, there cannot be any beer sold in houses at all.
Yeah. In case you get called to jump in for something or something like that.
Yeah, which is I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. Though I once ended a rehearsal at 7:00 or something like that, and I wanted to sit down, and I gave my all.
Yeah.
I wanted to sit down in the cantina and discuss the scene with my colleague with a beer, and I couldn't.
Yeah.
So we went somewhere else, but still, it was a little bit like, I'm not your fucking son.
Yeah. Look. To wrap this up, in the opera world, it's the same with beer, alcohol, drugs. It's all there. It's people performing in front of people. It's a high, intense anxiety thing, and it's all dangerous. It's all fucking dangerous. And it's not just drugs and alcohol. It's loneliness. It's fucking sex. People throw away relationships for like a fucking like lackluster hand job. You know.
Fucking lazy hand job.
We could talk about this all day. Like there's dark shit, but like if you're in a position to take that lackluster hand job, then take it. You know what I mean?
General, I suppose general advice is don't drink and push. Okay?
Yeah, don't drink and push. So look, if you got something to add to
by the way, if you guys like this, consider sponsoring us on Patreon.
Nice. Sneak it in there.
You like that? Right, Dan. Sponsor us on Patreon.
Please help. If you have something to add to the discussion of music being a language, please write us in. Neither Mike or I are ethnomusicologists. We're
not linguists. We're not
linguists. We're just fucking normal people. If you got some sort of expertise, write us in. If you disagree with something we said, write us in. We'll roast you. Otherwise, take care of yourself. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Happy Thanksgiving, peeps.